Making a video pointing out the parts of a brain on a mid-sagittal cut. Okay, if we look at this brain, the first major part that we see is all this area that's the squiggly part of the brain that we're used to seeing. That's called the cerebrum. The cerebrum is divided up into different lobes, just like it is for the skull, and it's named after the areas of the skull. So this area is called the frontal, based on that bone. Okay, the frontal area is where we're going to have a lot of our higher order thinking. It's where creativity, memories, emotion, and logic are going to be. Okay, on the top of the head, we have an area called the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is involved in touch sensation. Okay, and then this back portion here is the occipital lobe, named after that bone in the skull, and it's going to be in charge of vision. If we look here on the side, it's a little more visible, but this area right here on the side of the head is the temporal lobe, and it's used for hearing, and it's also used for smell. All right, if we look here, this area that we see, this white C-shaped area, is the corpus callosum, and it's very important because it's going to allow both sides of the brain to be able to communicate. The left and the right hemispheres communicate through that area. Right, then we've got a little open area in here. There's several places in the brain that are open spaces called ventricles, and ventricles will allow cerebrospinal fluid to circulate in the brain. So those areas are kind of open, empty cavities to let that flow. Right, then we've got this little area on the back of the brain here. So this is the back portion of the brain. This is called the cerebellum. And here it's going to be in control of all things that make you good at sports. So this kind of looks like a ball on the back of the brain. So all the things that make you good at sports for posture, coordination, and balance. Then we've got an area in the middle of the brain. This area in the middle of the brain includes all this stuff right here, and that is your diencephalon. Okay, the diencephalon consists of three places. We've got this area here is the thalamus. Okay, the thalamus is in control of relaying any sensory information from the body to the proper lobe in the brain. Okay, then we've got this little gland right here, the pineal gland. The pineal gland is in charge of regulating your sleep with a chemical it makes called melatonin. This area here is the hypothalamus. Hypo means below, so it's the area below the thalamus. And this is in charge of a lot of primal urges that we would see. Things for hunger and thirst and even a rage response, okay, that would be important for survival takes place in the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus has a round little gland that hangs off the bottom of it called the pituitary gland. And the hypothalamus is in charge of that pituitary gland and the hormones it releases. All right, another segment that we have of the brain is going to be this area here. This is your brain stem, and it consists of three parts. This area here, and that little portion right here, is called the midbrain. Okay, then we've got this area here called the pons. The pons is in charge of breathing. It's the main control center for breathing. And then this area that we have here is the medulla oblongata, and it's in charge of breathing and heart rate. Okay, and all three of these things, the midbrain, pons, and medulla together make up the brain stem. All right, and then if we look at the brain, okay, we have certain areas. We've got all these folds that are in the brain. Okay, these are called the gyri. Okay, gyri are the folds in the brain. Okay, and then the little creases that we see here. Okay, the small little creases that make the brain look wrinkly. Okay, those creases are called sulci. And then we've got very deep grooves in the brain, like ones that's going to separate our left and right hemisphere. So this groove going down the center is called your fissure. Okay, so we've got a few fissures in the brain that are going to separate that.